Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Reality Writes. I am author Ellie Alexander. This is the podcast where we talk about all things bookish, writerish. We try to give you a deep dive into what it means to publish multiple books in series and be readers and writers and creatives out in the world. And I am here with the tech guy.
Hello, hello. Just doing some creating today.
Just doing some creating today, as you do. I do always like to clarify for any new darlings who might be listening in for the first time that you are my husband.
Yes. I think it's probably a good idea to refresh everyone's memory, or at least state that fact every season of Reality Writes, because, darlings, we've gotten some crazy comments before. Rightfully so. Like, if you're jumping into the middle of this podcast and you don't know, because we're in different rooms, Ellie is actually just to my left through the wall here, but we have our own spaces, and sometimes it gets a little flirty, apparently, because you got one comment. This was last year, and I'll let you tell it, but it was gold. It was absolute
gold. A reader was very worried because they knew that I was married, and they were quite upset that I was flirting with the tech guy. Like, that's because he is my husband, but okay.
She was so kind and polite, though. She was. It was genuinely heartfult. Like, she was truly worried for you, and that made it all the better. Yes, we are married. We have been married for 28 years now. So yeah. So
a long time.
There you have it.
I had to bring it up again because I just did an online book event last week with a group of darlings who have been listening to the podcast, and they also did not know that you were my husband. So I was like, oh, okay, probably this is a good time to revisit that topic.
That's funny. Yeah. Yes, I am contractually obligated to do all the creative things that I do for Ellie.
That's right. And I write murder, which is what we're going to talk about today. So you're really contractually obligated. And way to weave in the topic for today, because that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the cozy contract today.
Oh, you say it like I did that on accident. Of course. That was intentional. It was a pun. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Was well
all
done.
right.
I'm impressed.
The cozy contract. Let's get into it. What is the cozy contract?
We've talked about this a little bit in the past in terms of just sort of what the cozy is and everything. But I think as an author, and so this is a great episode for any of you darlings who might be new writers or aspiring writers, but I hope also as readers that you will appreciate what goes into making sure that as a writer writing cozy mysteries, that I fulfill my end of the contract. And there are some non-negotiables that are unique to this genre. And we're just talking about a cozy contract today. If you're writing or reading sci-fi or romance, the rules are totally different.
The contract has a different lawyer managing that.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Or team of lawyers, depending.
Team of lawyers. Yeah. There's always more than one. Yes.
There's always. They come in packs. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So because this is a contract, I'm going to break this down into clauses because we're very legal here. Obviously, I know my legalese.
That is appropriate. I like it. All right. So What is clause number 1 of the cozy contract?
Clause number 1 is that justice will be served.
Yeah, that checks for sure. So whoever commits the crime, they're going to do the time.
Whoever commits the crime is going to do the crime. Yeah. So at the beginning of the book, we're going to have some sort of crime. In the cozy, it's a body. You do need a body. There are some cozies that break that rule, but as a general point, you need a body. There's going to be a crime. By the end of the book, the culprit will be behind bars. There will be justice. everything will be right in the world again. And that is a really critical element and reason that readers, darlings, keep coming back to this genre. We don't have a lot of instances in the real world where everything is wrapped up neat and tidy with a bow at the end. And that happens in these books.
That is something that I have particularly liked about getting to know the cozy mystery genre over the years of being married to you and having you write in this genre, is just always knowing that whoever commits the crime is going to see justice in the end. So you're going to feel like justice has been served, and you're going to feel good about what the resolution of whatever the action is that takes place.
Yeah, and there's something so rewarding and satisfying as a reader to come along from this starting point where something really horrible happens. And then at the end, you're going to have closure and the guilty party has been taken away by the local police or, whatever it is. And as a writer, you can't break that clause in this contract. You can't at the end leave all of these things dangling. There has to be justice. You must close the case.
I imagine that is something that is the first thing that readers look for in a cozy mystery, is ensuring that justice is going to be served. I can see that being something that would upset readers if the killer gets away with it in the end.
Yeah, it breaks every moral code in the contract to let the killer be running free through the streets. That just cannot happen in a cozy.
Okay, so that is clause 1. Is this? I'm assuming there are more than one clause in this contract, correct?
I think this contract could have a lot of clauses. We'll try to keep it, semi-short and sweet for today's episode, because my goal in this is to really give you, darlings, a sense of what you expect in a cozy and what our job as writers are when we are writing a cozy. So yes, there are a few, but not too many.
Okay. Can I ask one question and just back up for a second? Who wrote the contract? And is this something that, like, if it's broken, people can seek damages for?
Yes. From the tech guy. You will be responsible for that. The contract, I think, really started in the golden age of mysteries with Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers and a lot of the OG mystery writers when this genre really started taking root. And there's actually a pack that's out there by Agatha and a few other golden age mystery writers that you can look up that they swore an oath at a conference. And, that's really held true for all these years. You can play around with these rules, but if you're calling it a cozy, you have to stick to these clauses.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Was it a blood oath? Like, is there a dark side to cozy mysteries I don't know about? I'm kidding. I kid.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. What is clause 2?
Clause 2, and this is a real doozy, and I think darlings will understand it right away when I bring it up, and that is that the people I love are safe.
Oh, yeah. This one's super important. I've learned over the years, this is really important.
Yeah. So the main character, if we use my Bake Shop Mysteries as an example, Jules, who is our pastry chef, and is always on the case solving the crime with the police, right? Beloved characters do not die. Now, they should be put in peril. They should be put in danger. We need to raise tension and stakes throughout the book. But none of the secondary cast, the characters that you love, are going to meet an untimely fate. They are all off limits as far as murder goes. You're never going to see Lance or even Richard Lord. Like, any of the major cast of characters are safe.
Oh, even Richard Lord?
Richard Lord. I know.
Right now, there are darlings out there that are like, no.
I have thought that although then the darlings would kill me and I would be breaking this clause in the contract so you could sue me for damages, that at the end, when I eventually end the series completely, that it could be that Richard Lord is a serial killer spelled with a C as in cereal that you eat, and he's been doing it the whole time. But that would break
Yeah.
Free rule. I can't do it. No. But the characters that you love are safe. So you're reading these as an escape. You are going to feel like, Jules, you should not go down that dark alley, or please don't go talk to that person alone at night. She's going to do it. And maybe, you know, somebody bumps her, or she gets hit in the head, or breaks a fingernail, or ruins her souffle. But the characters that you love are off limits for murder. They are all going to be okay at the end, which again goes back to this idea of that is why darlings are picking up this particular genre. You also want to feel safe.
And they know those same characters are going to be in peril at some point in the book, or may be in peril. They just know that peril is not going to result in them being offed in a particular book.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't want to get into detail about it because I know I would be giving massive spoilers to people, but there is a TV show that I think can be classified as a cozy TV mystery. It's a British
know where you're going. Yes.
TV mystery, and they broke this rule in the biggest and most shocking way imaginable.
Yes.
Several years ago, by killing off the main character. Literally killed them in an episode. And I still remember watching that episode, and you and I were both like, what just happened?
I know. And then is it going to be a dream? Is this character going to come back? We were tongues on the floor, just mortified. Could not believe it.
Yeah. And then later in that episode, a new protagonist was introduced, and we were just stunned after that episode ended, and looked it up, and it all had to do with the actor that played the protagonist. The original protagonist was done with the show, didn't like being away from his family, and so on and so forth. And so they had to write him off, but it was shocking. And that was definitely a violation of Clause 2.
Violation of Clause 2. Do not do it. Do not do it. And to any darlings out there who might be working on your first cozy, if you decide to get rid of any of your main characters, or even your supporting and secondary characters, find a different way to do it. Do not kill them. No, that's off limits.
Right.
There
are plenty of ways there are plenty of reasons that they may leave, and just use one that doesn't involve violence.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Moving on. Clause 3.
Okay, this clause is important, and this talking about violence. The violence stays off the page. And I talk about this all the time, that it's like off stage, off screen. This is the opposite of CSI. So the whole focus of a cozy is that our sleuth is an amateur. Your protagonist is a pastry chef, or a brewer, or a bookstore owner. And the whole focus is piecing together the puzzle of the crime. We're not going deep into forensics. There's not going to be a crime scene. We are going to see the body. It's like I said at the beginning, one of the clauses is that you do need a murder because we have to solve something. And we are going to start from that point, and your sleuth is going to be running around town, asking questions, digging, researching, whatever it is, but they are not analyzing a crime scene. We're not going to see a lot of gruesome details, gore, or violence.
Yeah, you know, the DNA testing machine there in the Tort kitchen that they use all the time in the series, right? No.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you mentioned this as Clause 3, because this is the first example that I use every time when somebody asks me about you. Oh, your wife's an author. What does she write? And I explain cozy mysteries. And a lot of the time people are like, oh, I love cozy mysteries. But there are times where people are like, what's a cozy mystery? And that's the first thing I say, is that it's a murder mystery, but the deed takes place off the page. So there's somebody may get stabbed, but you don't see them get stabbed. They're discovered after the fact. You might see a little bit of blood, but there's not going to be gore everywhere on the floor that, people are slipping in and everything. So That is the number one way that I describe them. And people are generally like, oh, and usually they're like Murder, She Wrote. And I'm like, yes, like Murder, She Wrote.
Yes, like Murder, She Wrote. That's right. Yeah, and the crimes themselves, I mean, again, you have to like separate some things out because yes, a body has still been found, like somebody has died, and your sleuth needs an emotional reaction to that. That's one thing that I find new writers struggle with a lot, especially when I'm coaching and teaching mystery writers, because it's like, they found a dead body and now they're off doing this thing. I'm like, okay, wait, we need to take a beat for a minute and have your sleuth sit with the reality and also have that be part of the motivation why they might want to insert themselves into this crime. But we're also not talking about, the really violent kids don't die. It's not serial killer. There's just the tension is much lower because it is about the puzzle and why we do the things and what's the psychology behind the reason why somebody might have been driven to make this decision. All of those things are front of the page. Everything else is off page.
Yeah, kids and animals. You touch the animals, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, that's right.
All the adults are fair game. Like, that's totally fine. But,
except for our main characters.
Except the main characters and the sub-characters. That's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. This is interesting, too, because you said something that resonated with me, which is, that sleuths are amateurs. So are the killers. Right. There's no there's no professional hit people. There's no serial killer. There's, it's even with a C. There's just so the crimes themselves are puzzles because they're usually committed in haste or, the method is something that they've planned out, but they don't do this for a living. So there's, there are things that need to be figured out that you, I guess, wouldn't necessarily think of right away because they've probably just thought of it in the minute and or in the moment and really just kind of it was emotionally triggered or whatever. So that's interesting though. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is a fine line that you have to walk, and it's harder than you might think, darlings. And it's something that I've spent a lot of time working on with every book and continue to do because you want the stakes high enough that there is, like you mentioned, like Jules is going to stumble upon somebody with a stab wound, or, maybe somebody's been poisoned with a cup of tea and go back to Agatha Christie. So you need that. You don't want something that's so tame, but then, you can quickly go really dark. Mm-hmm. And the expectation for readers then is like, wait, I'm not here for the blood and guts. I am here for the setting, the food, the vibes, the feeling of security, knowing that people are safe. So that is a real critical point and a clause you cannot break.
And blood and guts would break the clause for sure. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
All right. What does that bring us to? Clause 4?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What's clause 4 of the contract?
Clause 4 is that the setting endures. The setting is a character. And I talk about this so much, and I'm sure, darlings, you get tired of hearing me talk about it, but the setting gets to stay the same. It is always going to be cozy. Every time you come to Juliet's version of Ashland, her sweet little hamlet, you're going to walk through the streets. You're going to see the sun kissing the top of Grizzly Peak. You're going to pop into Tort and get a cardamom latte and a morning bun. You might have a run-in with Richard Lord. You're going to walk through Lithia Park. All of those setting details, like our main characters, they're off limits. You can't create this magical world that readers want to come back to again and again. And then in book 2, 3, or 4, change it and make it totally different, make it darker, make it gruesome. You can add and enhance the setting, but the setting itself is a character and needs to be treated as such.
So just like the main characters, the setting is safe. It can grow and expand, but it can't be burned to the ground, which almost happened in real life to the real life setting Ashland, Oregon for the Bake Shop Mystery Series. There was a wildfire several years ago that unfortunately burned many, many buildings and homes in nearby Talent and Phoenix, which are just north of Ashland. And had the wind been blowing the other way, the setting for the Bake Shop Mysteries would have burned to the ground. And had that happen, what would you have done for the Bake Shop series? Knowing that Clause 4 exists, what would you have done? Do you know?
Ashland would have just continued, probably. I mean, I would have created that world and kept it the same, because it is a fictional version of Ashland anyway. And I think COVID is a good example of this.
Oh, yeah.
Because, COVID happened. I wrote this series all through COVID. There's never a mention of it in the books. We just sort of pretend like that didn't happen, even though these are set in modern times. And if you look at the timeline, it would have stretched all through that, because this is fiction. These are books meant to be an escape, as I keep saying. And so you don't want to be in a world where then you're suddenly flooded with memories of a time that was really challenging and a struggle for so many of us. So I think the same would be true. Over the years, I've had readers say, oh, you should use the fire in a story. Like, that's off limits for me too, because it really happened. And so if you're writing about a real place, I do think you need to be sensitive about real events that could have happened. Just because you want this to feel like a world that is sunshine and roses and unicorns, and everyone in town loves each other, and the whole village is going to come together to solve this crime together and make sure, to go back to clause number 1, that justice is served and all is right with the world at the end of the book.
Yeah, and COVID is a great example, because there were real life casualties to Ashland as the setting because of the pandemic. There were beloved businesses that are no longer there because because life happened. So the setting endures regardless of real life. And I guess, we get comments sometimes from readers of like, oh, Ellie, but what about this? What about that? You brought up one about the fire and everything. But the thing is, like, while Ashland is a real place and the Bake Shop Mysteries are set there, these are also fictional books. There's a pastry chef that's solving crimes. And I'm the first one to tell you right now, Ashland is a town of under 25,000 people. There have not been 22 murders there in the last several years, right? Yeah. So you can't apply your thinking or a rule to one aspect of it, but not all aspects. So I feel like this is a good one, because I feel like when people do keep coming back to the series, they want Ashland to be there and to be the same place that they were introduced to in book 1. If not book 7, for those of you who might be there. What about if I pick it up in the middle? If you go back and listen to a previous episode, we talked about that. You cannot read a series out of order.
No. We've established it. We're not reopening that case. I would also say that, and this is something that I have learned over the years too, there have been a few books where Jules and crew have gone on location somewhere else, like to Costa Rica, to a coffee farm, or up to Lake of the Woods for a winter getaway. And inevitably, I will hear from darlings, I will hear from readers, I enjoyed that book, but I need her back in Ashland. Is she going back to Ashland for the next book? And I think there's really something valuable and important in that. Now, of course, for me, I want to make sure that the series changes and grows, because it's been going for so long. I want to find ways to keep it fresh. But the setting is such a character and such a part of the experience of reading a series that it's important that, especially for somebody who might be working on a new book, that you really establish that before then you're sending your sleuth other places. And you think about like, ooh, how am I going to make sure that the setting is a touch point? Like, even when I'm sending Jules off, which doesn't happen very often, so don't panic, darlings. But if she's off on some sort of adventure somewhere else, the book always starts and ends in Ashland, because that is our home base, our grounding point, our center point. It's important.
And then Ashland, as the character, it makes an appearance in every book.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just like you would want Jules or your main sleuth to make sure that they're in every book.
Totally. Okay. What is clause 5?
This one is interesting because I think it is pretty unique to the cozy. It's a secondary trope that shows up in a lot of cozies, and that is a love arc. And I know darlings have strong feelings about whether these should be included, whether they shouldn't be included. That's up to you. That's completely up to the writer. If you are going to include some sort of love arc, triangle, etc., whatever it is, it needs to have movement or closure, or it needs to grow or change with time. You can't just stretch that out forever without any sort of resolution, because we don't want that as readers. Like, that's so frustrating if you're following along for 22 books and nothing has progressed with a love arc. You're really breaking that clause. And I will say, this wasn't in Agatha's clause back in the day. This is a modern take, because I think we see a lot more of a love triangle or a little subplot of a romance in the cozy in modern times than we used to back in the day.
Yeah, it is something that makes an appearance quite often. And it's also something that is controversial. I mean, I think, that is something that even in series like the Bake Shop Mysteries, very early on, Team Thomas, Team Carlos, there was big drama there. And drama. It was funny, though, because there were readers that even 3 books in were like, okay, Ellie, it's time to wrap it up. Jules just needs to pick. Right. She just needs to pick a guy and go forward. And it's like, whoa, that because this is a fictional world that you've made up, this could have been less than a year of time that's passed between those 3 books, and wanting it wrapped up that quickly would have been interesting. But I can definitely see that it would be frustrating for a reader if that particular arc was just stagnant and sitting there for book after book after book with no movement or resolution.
Right. And you can do different things. That doesn't mean that your character has to end up with either of the people if you have a love triangle, or, if it's just one person of interest, but there needs to be progress. You cannot just leave it out there dangling. And I would say this also goes for any kind of subplot. We talked about the fact that a lot of my books have secondary subplots, like another murder or another crime to solve. You can't stretch that out for 20 books either. You need to have resolution for any of these arcs. And then you can come in and bring in a new idea and have your sleuth be working through a new emotional arc or a friendship or whatever it is. But you have to have movement and progress.
I was just going to ask that if you had a protagonist, let's say Jules, and Jules decides, neither of these guys are for me. Can you bring in 2 more guys and start all over again? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, tell us, darlings, what do you think? I think you might get some feedback, but I think that's better than dragging something out that is clearly not working and you're going to spend 12 books developing. But I think the idea, again, if we sink into the idea that these are really modern day fairy tales, because everything's going to be right in the world. We're in this beautiful setting. You have this community and village. That goes back to that idea that in the clause, the expectation is that there's some resolution for finding love or finding yourself or whatever that journey is that your sleuth is on. That's important because we're looking for that ourselves when we're reading. We're seeing ourselves in Jules' worldview, or we're trying to seek those stories maybe in a moment that's really hard and difficult. I think readers tend to come to cozies during darker times in their lives, and they're looking for something that's light. So they want closure and resolution on every level.
Totally. They want a protagonist to bring a killer to justice and then walk down the street and start baking a batch of delicious pastries.
Damn straight they do. And who doesn't? Like, I want that. Right. Well, I don't want the first part maybe, but yeah.
Well, you want the justice to be served, though. That was clause 1. So
yeah, I do.
All right. There are likely more clauses to the contract, but for the sake of brevity here, we're going to wrap it at 5. Can you recap the 5 clauses that we covered for the darlings out there?
Can I give you one more bonus one?
Oh, you've got a bonus clause? Perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, because I think this is important. And this is especially important for any darlings who are writing. And this speaks to the idea of the formula. You have to follow the formula. The formula is the blueprint. It's the outline. It is what we all, as readers of the Cozy, expect. We need a body. We need suspects. We need progression. We need to have red herrings. And then we need closure at the end. What makes every series, every book, every story unique is your own spin that you put inside that formula. That's where all of the creativity falls in. But if you're breaking the formula, if you have 22 suspects, and so we're struggling to just keep track of who everyone is. If anything that you do that breaks that formula is a massive, massive no in terms of this clause.
I'm going to tell all the writers out there, aspiring, professional, whatever, if you've got 22 suspects, you've broken every clause in every contract of all time, like throughout history. Please don't have 22 suspects.
No, and I think at some point we should do an entire podcast on formula because it is so important, and it is more unique, I would say, to the mystery genre. Every genre has its own style and formula, but there are certain things that are unique to the mystery and to the cozy that are critical and important. And sometimes there's this negative slant then because it's like, oh, you're following a formula when you write. Yeah, the formula is what drives plot. These are plot-driven books. And then that doesn't take away the fact that you get to pour all of your creative energy into the setting and the characters and how the crime is going to occur and how you're going to piece those puzzles together. That's the fun and the creative part of it. But you have to follow a structure. If you're not following the structure, you're not writing a cozy.
Yeah, well, and the cozy genre is not the only one that follows a formula. So anybody who scoffs at these books having a formula to them isn't really paying close enough attention to the books they're reading, because I'll tell you right now, one of my favorite series, Murderbot, Martha Wells series, those books are all formulaic. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen, and yet I wholeheartedly dive into every new book the first day it's released because I'm craving that formula. I know what's going to happen. And yet I'm still surprised every time because of what she puts inside those guidelines. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So embrace the formula.
Embrace the formula. I like it. That is a good one. And if you break the formula, you're breaking, this is special clause number 6 of the contract, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It could be the most important in some ways too.
Oh, well,
saving the best
sometimes
for last.
They are. Yeah.
Don't break that one.
Do you have any other surprise clauses for me?
No, I think that's it for now. I mean, we could continue because we got some more rules, but these are the big picture. I think that gives, hopefully, darlings, you a vision of what my responsibility is as a writer and what you're going into a cozy expecting and hopefully receiving by the end.
That's really good. And so for the darlings out there, we want to know, what is it that you expect when you pick up a cozy mystery? Do these 6 clauses cover everything that you're looking for in a cozy, or are there things that we haven't covered yet that you expect from a writer every time you open the pages of a cozy mystery?
That's right. Tell us. Share here. We want to hear your thoughts.
Definitely. All right. Well, until next time.
Break out those clauses.